Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Tonka, for holding today's important hearing. Thanks to the panel for testifying here today. Important context for this hearing is understanding that America's air quality is among the best in the world, and that the U.S. emissions have steadily decreased over the past several decades, even as economic input and output has changed. We observe this trend because of the fact that reasonable clean air standards lead to economic growth, and that this economic growth spurs innovation and investment in technology that ultimately reduces emissions without sacrificing output. We need to balance public health and clean air goals with the reality that attainable standards will not only hurt the American economy, but also disincentivize development of the more efficient technologies necessary to continue to lower U.S. emissions. Mr. Whiteman, I'd like a clarification of some previous discussion we've had. Could you explain the data differences between the two MACs that were recently discussed?
Will do. Thank you for the question, Mr. Joyce. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between the two maps that we've seen here today. The map that was put together that we presented and talked about actually looks at more recent data that actually incorporates the fires from 2023, which is missing from the EPA map, which we just saw previously. And that's one of the big reasons why we see such a massive increase in non-attainment areas. Everybody remembers here in Washington, D.C., when we had 2 weeks of red haze in the sky because of the emissions coming down from Canada. The other thing is EPA only looks at the monitored areas to determine non-attainment areas, and they didn't look at adjacent areas. So therefore, we did. And when you have adjacent areas to non-attainment areas, you can expect them to have issues. And finally, I'll just mention that EPA has a habit of underestimating the non-attainment areas. In the 2015 NAAQS, they estimated 14 counties out of California to be out of attainment with the NAAQS. The last time I looked at EPA's Green Book, there are over 143 counties that are out of attainment with the ozone NAAQS. So the issues can be significant. It's a real issue. You have to look at the recent data, and unfortunately, the prior estimates have been underestimated, and we think our maps are much more accurate.
Thank you for that clarification. Dr. Boylan, in your testimony, you discuss how the lack of headroom in some areas due to the stringent 2024 annual PM 2.5 standards hurts economic development, even in attainment areas that comply with the current NAAQS. Can you discuss how these overly burdensome standards can prevent the permitting and development of innovative projects such as data centers that we desperately need?
Yes, so it goes back to the headroom issue with the map. If you looked at the map in Georgia, it had a lot of red areas and then a lot of pink areas, making it very difficult, the pink areas being the attainment areas. With so little headroom and the amount of energy that is going to be required for these data centers, it's going to be very challenging to be able to permit all the new power generation that is going to be needed to power this industry.
By creating an inhospitable environment for these projects, data centers you mentioned, we will lose out on investment in American innovation to countries like China, which lacks truly any meaningful environmental regulations. Dr. Boylan, would you agree that ceding our investment opportunities to foreign adversaries who do not have clean air requirements not only harms the U.S. economy, but is incompatible with the ultimate goal of protecting the environment?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Mr. Whitman, do overly aggressive and burdensome environmental regulations threaten our global competitiveness?
They're really challenging. They're micromanaging businesses and aren't providing the opportunities for us to innovate, which we do best.
In the same vein, in order to encourage investment and project sponsors, they need to have the predictability when they choose to invest their resources that will not be burdened with unforeseen costs. Unfortunately, PSD projects that submitted previously but not finalized before the effective date of tighter standards are not grandfathered in, will be forced to invest resources to update their permitting. Dr. Boylan, how will giving more flexibility to projects that are already engaged in the permitting process benefit both the states and the industry stakeholders?
Yes, so you're correct that there's no grandfathering in. The grandfathering would allow projects that have already in the permitting process to continue through that process and finish them out. So it'd save a lot of resources for states and industry, and rather than having to go back to the drawing board and starting from scratch again.
So short answer, grandfathering in will speed up the process.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired. I yield back.